KRFP, you're on the Mark David Show.
Yes, this is Sheriff Rausch calling in.
Oh, hello, Sheriff Rausch. How are you doing? Thank you for calling in on the Mark David Show.
I'm doing well, thank you.
Hey, so I'll just jump right into the interview then. Can you start off talking about your history as an officer?
Yes, I'd be glad to. I have 27 years of law enforcement experience. I hold many of the Idaho Post certificates, to include the Executive Certificate, which is the highest one. I'm a post-certified firearms instructor of 20 years. I served in 2010 as the Idaho Sheriff's Association president, and I worked hard to bring permanent funding to the ISA-sponsored VINE program. Stands for Victim Information and Notification Every Day. It's a tool to help victims of crime keep track of the offenders that were responsible for harming them, and is really in place from the time that they're incarcerated throughout, so that you can always know where the location of that person is, what their status is. I was the 2011 recipient of the Mills Adler Outstanding Idaho County Official Award. I have over 3,000 hours of specialized law enforcement training. I'm NIMS, which is National Incident Management System certified. I'm a member of the Executive Board of the Quad Cities Drug Task Force, and also a board member of the Critical Incident Response Team, which is a team that was put into place with many other agencies to investigate officer-involved shootings.
Wow, so you got a pretty big resume. What would you say is the biggest threat in your assessment to people in this region?
Oh, I think that's maybe a difficult question to answer, because there are so many unknowns. I would say at this point, probably the biggest threat we faced is a natural disaster.
Okay.
We've seen just recently a declaration of disaster declared here county-wide based upon all the flooding that we had, and there's always the potential of that. There's the potential of a fire like we had back approximately 8 years ago. So a natural disaster, I think, probably is the most likely scenario of a big threat.
Okay. Now, Sheriff Rausch, when you hire officers, what do you look for in candidates that you're interviewing and you hire?
Well, let me first explain the process, because I think that's an important component of it all.
Yes, sir.
When we advertise for officers, when we get our list, the first thing we do is we look through that list to make sure that our short application form doesn't indicate that there are any criminal convictions, things which would preclude them from continuing in the process. And once we have weeded those out, we then send invitations out for a written test to determine their ability to spell, to punctuate, to understand everyday situations, mathematical computations, which are used, of course, in accident investigation, things of that nature. Just common sense test.
Okay.
After that, we put them through a physical agility testing. And that physical agility testing is, of course, designed to make sure that we have somebody that has the physical requirements to do our job, which can be very physical in nature. Once we've done that, we go to an oral board. An oral board is usually a group of 3 to up to 5 people on a board with various levels of law enforcement experience. Sometimes a citizen is involved, like somebody maybe from the Chamber of Commerce, or somebody maybe from the university, to give a little more diversity to that board. This candidate is asked specific questions to determine what their interests are, what their qualifications are, how they would respond under certain circumstances. Once that's completed, and we do a background investigation, which is very thorough. It's a 37-page application, which gives us the names of landlords, of neighbors, of past employers. We send out questionnaires to these people to ask what they know about their character. Are they known to have taken drugs? Are they known to be involved in alcohol offenses? Have they been good citizens? Do they pay their bills on time? Do they cause any problems? Would you recommend them for this position? Just a whole litany of questions. Once those are returned, and we believe that we have an applicant that meets the qualifications that we're looking for, we send them to a polygrapher, and they do a polygraph test. If everything that they say about themselves is truthful, our final stipulation is to go to a psych, and they do a psychological evaluation, and if they are fit for law enforcement and everything looks good, then we then make an offer for employment. We're looking for absolutely the best we can possibly get.
Okay, Sheriff Rausch, what is the best? What qualifies someone to be the best, even after they go through that rigorous process? In your assessment as their supervisor and manager, what does the best mean for them?
Well, the best means just that, the best. I mean, the best integrity, the best morals, the best values, the best response to their capability of doing the job. Of course, I don't distinguish between sexes. I don't distinguish between somebody small or somebody short or anything else that's prohibited by governmental law.
Right.
We just go right down the line. I don't care if you're 6'10" and weigh 290 pounds, or if you're 5'4" and weigh 140. If you meet the qualifications, you meet the qualifications.
I understand. Could you tell us, the listeners, really quickly, what the training regimen is like, kind of, for a new officer that comes in?
Well, certainly. Once we get that person hired, brought on board, so to speak, they're assigned to what we call an FTO program, stands for Field Training Officer. That program is a 13-week program. There is a list of tasks that they must complete in this manual. It's the Kaminsky manual, which is used nationwide. It is the standard. And they are taught the policies, the procedures, how to respond to various crimes, how to deal with things. All of that is taught by several field training officers. They go through actually 3 of them during the course of the 13 weeks. In the first year, within the first year of hiring, they must attend a full-time post-academy. And at that time that they're finished with their FTO, sometimes they are booked for the academy prior to finishing their FTO, and they finish it when they return. But that academy is a 12-week academy. So actually, you're looking at, from the time that this process begins to the time the process ends and all the time in between, it takes almost a year to replace an officer.
Wow. Now, Sheriff Rausch, in that process, the Kaminsky and all so forth, the training, do you know how much is focused on the Constitution?
Well, just about everything's focused on the Constitution. I think we need to define the Constitution here. The Constitution of the United States allows for the Constitution of the state of Idaho and the laws of the state of Idaho. Now, the Constitution clearly dictates, of the United States clearly is the supremacy of the two. In other words, the supremacy clause, meaning that if there is a conflict between the two, that the Constitution of the United States prevails. However, the laws that we practice, the laws that we're given to work with, are much more important and much more readily used on our day-to-day jobs than carrying around a copy of the United States Constitution in our pocket.
Okay. Now, Sheriff Rausch, if you win again, what do you plan on, or do you plan on doing anything differently? Is there something you want to accomplish in the next term?
Well, the things that I would like to accomplish are things that have been ongoing projects and ongoing needs of the county that I certainly would like to see through to the end. One of the things that I promised back 8 years ago was to improve the Latah County radio communications capabilities. That's been a very daunting task due to numerous things that have come into play, and I still want to see it through. So certainly that, but you know, we want to basically continue what we're doing now, and I think a lot of that's been very, very successful. You know, there may be things that folks don't understand. I appointed a full-time CRO/SRO, Community Resource Officer, School Resource Officer, to the schools, not only to work well with the teachers and to understand what's going on with problems within the school, but for the safety of the children. I appointed a canine program here when I first came, where we had 2 drug-sniffing dogs. That was due to a very sizable donation that was made by a private citizen that enabled us to get those dogs here. And we use those dogs to great effect. Now, we don't have that program in operation right now simply because dogs only produce for a certain amount of time. And when we got these dogs in, they were 3 to 4 years old. They worked for approximately 7 years, which made them old dogs, and now we're in a position where we're going to have to study it and see how we're going to get some funding to be able to get more dogs back out on the street. But I also established a full-time narcotics interdiction deputy position here in the county. Now, before, that person used to share duties with detectives in general, and so wasn't actually a full-time person. Now, it's important to note that all of those came out of patrol. I wasn't given an extra budget to do those things, but I felt that they were essential in our mission to serve the county. And those are things that I want to continue.
No, that's a great elaboration. Could you go into your role a little bit deeper about what you do with the Quad City Drug Task Force?
Certainly. The Quad City Drug Task Force is basically based out of the state of Washington. That's where most of their funding comes from. However, in the working of narcotics crime, what you find is that drugs usually follow a pipeline, and they come from certain parts of the country, and from that part of the country up to you. And what we found is that although we certainly want to keep our Quad Cities Drug Task Force employee working local cases here in the county instead of going out of the state and spending a lot of time trying to find the head of the snake, it's still essential that they help cooperate with law enforcement, narcotics interdiction across the line, because many of the drugs that are coming into here into this county are also coming out of Washington.
Okay. Now, Sheriff Rausch, is there a formal capacity that the Latah County Sheriff's Office or yourself works with Homeland Security?
No, there is not.
Okay, so there's no formal relationship. Now, you do participate in some drills. Like, were you part of the drill at the University of Idaho in the Kibbie Dome?
Yes. Well, I had officers that were there. That was riot training. There's nothing new about that, and it's absolutely essential that you stay trained. The equipment and techniques are always changing, and we always try to be on top of the situation so that when it comes, it doesn't, so to speak, catch us with our pants down.
So that was a routine training for you guys?
That's correct.
Okay. How big of a threat, in your assessment, is rioting in this area?
Well, I think that's kind of a loaded question. Had you asked me prior to 2007 how much of a threat was there here in the city of Moscow to have my office shot up and numerous people murdered, I would have told you it was going to be really low. But since that isn't something that we can predict, and since we know that it happened, we also know that in 1998 Wazoo rioted and caused quite a bit of a problem, and agencies from all over this area, all over the state, were all responding to that to deal with it. I think that the smart money says you prepare rather than be caught with your pants down.
Yes, sir. And I think that you bring up a good point. Based on your experience, do you see some of these threats more now? Or are they more threats, or is it just something that can happen and we are prepared for?
Well, I would tell you that I think that in some ways crime is down, in some ways crime is up. I'll have to say that I resent the comments made by one of the candidates that he wants to return the crime level to pre-2004. I can tell you this, that we don't have any higher crime here really than we did in 2004, other than property crime has gone up in 2011 by approximately 30%. However, that's not just my agency, that's all the area agencies. The Quad Cities Drug Task Force is made up of about 15 different agencies here, and in speaking with those agency heads when I attend my meetings, we all agree that property crime is up about 30% and has been for some time now, we believe, due to the economy. By the same token, we have certainly lost as high a percentage as of personal crime, crime against people. And so crime is up, crime is down, in some areas up in others, not easily predictable, and sometimes there are anomalies. So as to whether or not these threats are increasing, I can't tell you. I don't know that anybody can really give you any factual information that would support that one way or the other. But I can tell you I'm going to prepare for it.
Yes, sir. Now, if the economy gets worse, do you foresee more property crime, and what would your office do to follow up on that?
Well, it's exactly what we did last time. We had a wave of burglaries. There's more concentration in that specific area, more communications with agencies that surround us, and what have they discovered? Have they made any arrests wherein our crime might have been involved with theirs? We communicate very well with all of our neighboring agencies. Try to do public service announcements, telling people, make sure you lock your house, don't leave your vehicle unlocked. Talk to your neighbors when you go on vacation. Talk to us when you go on vacation. We've had numerous requests to swing by property and check it while people are away.
Yes, sir. Now, speaking of your fellow candidates, I noticed doing research on your past candidacies, you don't get real negative, but a couple of the comments that were consistent were that they would get out more with the outside community, and they would be more available. Is that a correct assessment? Is that something you would like to do more of, or where are you at in how you manage things in relation to what they said that they would be their goals?
Well, I'll tell you what. It's easy to say things.
Oh, sure.
But it's much more difficult to back them up. One of the recent debates that we had at the Moscow High School here just last week, I thought a very factual and telling statement was made by Commissioner McGraw, who got up, and what he relayed to the audience was that I made an awful lot of promises during my campaign, and it wasn't but a couple of months in that I realized 85% of them I couldn't keep. Now, and that is a very factual thing. What I can tell you is that when I campaigned, I wanted to commit my Fridays to going out into the county and being out there and meeting with people. I can tell you this, that this job is sufficiently busy, and especially if you're really committed and involved with what you're doing, the amount of meetings that you have to go to, the amount of commitments that you make, it's very difficult for me to do anything more than those commitments that I've made. The other problem that I've found is that there really is not a venue out in these county communities to really take and have touch with the public. I have many times through the years made an appointment to go to a city council meeting in any one of these communities, ask them to advertise it. My whole point was I wanted to meet with members of the community to determine if they had any problems, if there was anything they needed me to address. You go into one of the community meetings, and there may be 5-10 people there besides the councilman and the mayor. Within 10 minutes, somebody's gotten up and complained about their garbage collection, somebody's complained about their water bill, somebody complains about something else or maybe makes comments, and as they finish, they walk out the door, And I wind up being there with the city council and the mayor, and they say, well, Sheriff, what did you need? And I say, well, you know, I just wanted to make sure everything was going okay, and I'd like to touch base with people. Well, no, as far as we can see, everything's okay, and I mean, and that's the size of it. At what kind of a venue is there available? I can tell you this, that a sheriff, 2 sheriffs ago, spent a lot of time out in the county. His venue was the bars. You won't find me doing that.
No, I don't think I've ever heard of that. No. Okay, Sheriff Rausch. So with the little time we have left, what is your relationship with Moscow Police Department? How do you guys work together? How do you work with I believe it's Chief Duke over there?
Very well. I immediately established a relationship with them, and let me tell you what some of the things we've done and what some of the benefits are, because one of the things that I want to make sure I do is, rather than throwing out just vague generalities as the other 2 candidates did, and then not giving any specification as to what they're talking about, I will give you specification.
Yes, sir. Yes,
sir. I remember when I first joined this organization under the previous sheriff, we used to travel all the way to Lewiston to shoot at their range for our qualifications. Not only was there a lot of travel time involved, but it also cost this organization a lot of money to rent that range. Once there was a range here in the city of Moscow, or for the city of Moscow, out on one of the rural roads here, even though we used it, we still had to pay the Moscow Police Department for that. I established such a relationship with the police department that we now have free access to that range. They welcome us out there. They let us do it free of charge. So it's saving us some money. We cross-train with them on SWAT, so that in the event that we have a situation, well, a good example was with the Bustamante shooting that just took place here not too long ago in this community. That was my SWAT team that responded there to the university in Best Western to deal with that, because most of their SWAT officers were away on training. Another thing I've done is I have cross-deputized Moscow police officers to enhance services and cooperation during emergencies. So now if these gentlemen have to go out into the county in order to back us up, or if there's a crime that starts in the city and goes out to the county, they don't have to call one of us to be able to properly handle it, because they are now cross-deputized.
Okay, so all citizens anywhere in the county can expect, it could either be Latah County Sheriff, it could be Moscow City Police, or inside Moscow, it could be Latah County Sheriff, whatever.
Well, one of the things that's an important distinction to remember is that the sheriff has jurisdiction everywhere.
Okay.
And so Moscow is in Latah County, therefore we have jurisdiction in Moscow too. One of the things you should remember is that when we get leaving the station here and say we're headed out through town to go up north to Potlatch, if we see a violation in front of us, my officers are going to stop and take care of that. That doesn't mean that they're trolling the city of Moscow, but what it certainly means, how insulting would it be if you were a Moscow police officer and a Latah County Sheriff's deputy who has jurisdiction within your community, sees a crime happen, sees a traffic violation, and calls you to come take care of it instead of doing it themselves.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, one more quick question, Sheriff Rausch. If there are changes in the economy and your budget is affected, how would you, in another term, respond to that and still maintain your focus on reducing crime and keeping people safe and crime-free as possible?
No, that's a good question. And, you know, once again, I think what it all boils down to is you may have to cut some services. Now, there's some services that we do, such as VIN inspections, that are really a community service rather than an absolute necessity. I can tell you that in other states, if you have to have a VIN inspection, you're required to take your vehicle to DMV, where DMV officers then come out and do the inspection themselves. We might be forced to stop doing those, or as we have in the past, we might let them collect for a while before we go out to a particular community. Well, one of the things that you certainly can't do and expect there to be not other problems that occur, and I noticed I've got to bring this up because I think it dovetails right in with what you asked, and that's, let's say that fuel is getting scarce and everything, and we decide, okay, let's double up our officers. Well, let's say you have 3 officers available on shift and 2 of them ride in the same vehicle. What have you just effectively done? You've reduced the number of people now that can actually respond to a call. And so you can't say that you're going to cut expenses that way, yet you're going to improve response time. It doesn't work. And that's just it. You have to understand that there's a give and take here.
Yes, sir. Well, Sheriff Rausch, it's been an honor talking to you. I thank you for coming on the show. And will you come back on the show one way or another, win or lose sometime, and chat?
Yes, I would.
All right. I thank you so much for coming on the show. That was Sheriff Wayne Rausch. The primary is May 15th. And don't forget to get out and vote, because as you've been hearing these candidates, this is a very, very, very important election. Thank you, Sheriff Rausch. I look forward to talking to you again. So that is all the time we have on the Mark David Show today. Tune in next week, 12:05 p.m., Tuesday, where the truth is a conspiracy. The Twitter account is Mark David Show. Make sure you check it out. And don't forget to like the Mark David Show on Facebook.